On the night of September 1st, 1983, a passenger jet carrying 269 people vanished from the sky over the Sea of Japan. It wasn't a combat aircraft, it wasn't on a secret mission. It was Korean Airlines Flight 007, a Boeing 747 on a scheduled route from New York to Seoul, with a stop in Anchorage, Alaska. And it ended with a fatal chain of error, assumption and fear. The kind of chain the Cold War was built to accelerate. Before we get into airspace and radar returns, it's worth remembering what this really was. Families, students, crew members doing their jobs, a US Congressman, Larry McDonald, among the passengers. Ordinary lives moving through an ordinary night, until it wasn't. After departing Anchorage, the aircraft was supposed to follow a trans-Pacific route using programmed waypoints, an inertial navigation track that would keep it clear of Soviet territory. But investigators later concluded the jet likely remained in, or effectively stayed in, an autopilot heading mode, instead of properly tracking the inertial route. The result was subtle at first, then relentless. Over hours, KAL 007 drifted farther and farther off course, eventually crossing into Soviet airspace near Kamchatka, then later over the region around Sakhalin. Now place that navigational mistake inside the atmosphere of 1983. This was peak Cold War tension. Soviet air defences were on edge, and from their perspective, an unidentified aircraft deep in restricted airspace didn't look like an innocent mistake, it looked like a threat. In the confusion of radar tracking and intercept procedures, the airliner was treated as a possible intruder, even confused by some with US reconnaissance activity in the region. Soviet fighters were scrambled. As KAL 007 continued, an interceptor widely reported as an Su-15 closed in. And then the moment everything becomes irreversible. The jet was hit by air-to-air missiles and went down into the sea near Monaron Island, west of Sakhalin. No survivors. The International Civil Aviation Organization, the ICAO, investigated and concluded the airspace violation was unintentional, driven by navigational error and missed cross-checks in the cockpit. Years later, after the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia released the cockpit voice and flight data recorders, and the ICAO's later review still supported that core conclusion. The aircraft had accidentally flown off its intended track. But accidental doesn't soften what happened. It only sharpens the tragedy. A small early error, left uncorrected, entering a world where the default assumption was hostility. And for the families, the aftermath wasn't only grief, it was the added cruelty of politics, competing narratives, propaganda, arguments about blame, and a sense that the truth was being fought over while the dead were still unrecovered. KAL 007 remains one of history's most haunting examples of misidentification, not because it's mysterious in the paranormal sense, but because it shows how quickly a human mistake can become a geopolitical catastrophe when fear is already airborne. If a single flight can be mistaken for an enemy, what does that say about the era and about us?